baseball lifestyle. It's my lifestyle.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of the Grounds Crew. We are live at the Players House at the 2021 All-Star Game in Denver, Colorado, and we are joined today by an MLB legend, Steve Garvey. Thank you so much for being here. It is an honor to be in your presence and have you on our show. Thank you so much.
It's like being with my sons today.
I'm glad your
After
sons are
5
nice.
daughters, by the way, thank you for having me, give me a chance to talk.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think when we were talking about when we were finding out that we were going to have the chance to talk with you, there's a current generation of young kids who don't know who you are, but one thing that we all know is you should be a Hall of Famer, and the fact that you haven't yet is one of those conversations that needs to be brought up by people like us. So hopefully there's pressure and there's that thing, because you had an amazing career and you had 30 home run seasons when guys weren't hitting 30 home runs, and you were an excellent, excellent player. So getting your take and getting your insight is going to be absolutely incredible, and I am super excited for it.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. I ironically have been on every ballot that I've been eligible to be on. I think it's probably 20-something now, and the formats have changed after the first 15, and it's been very interesting. And I know there are times when I've gone on Mike and Mike, and I've gone, Mad Dog shows all through the years, and then all of a sudden the guys go, wait a minute, let's pull up some stats. How about this situation, that situation? And I say, I don't have 500 home runs, I don't have 3,000 hits, but I've got a body of work that I think I'm honored to have done it. And I think if you look at it, it becomes impressive when you start adding consecutive game streaks and longest streak without an error at one time, and Gold Gloves, and the number of All-Star games, won all those.
All-Star game MVPs.
Yeah, MVPs, playoff MVPs, and regular season. So, sometimes you have to look at the body of work, and you have to look at, and I was just talking in another interview, what seems to lose importance is winning. And the essence of every sport and every game is winning and contribution to winning. And if you start being so isolated in individual performances and not in context to their contribution to the team's success, then I think there's an element that now, is it 10%? Is it 25%? Is it 30%? It's all subjective to the individual, but it's important.
And I think that, and we've talked about it many times, you have players who put up great stats when the games are meaningless, and those players don't have the same pressure to perform. So two players who were compared for a long time were Mookie Betts and Mike Trout, and they both played a similar position. They've both had amazing seasons in their career. Mookie's games have mattered more than Mike Trout's, and you could say, well, Trout's team wasn't there, everything else. That's fine, but a player like Mookie is going to make a game-winning play that might hurt his statistics because it means the difference between moving on and not. And when you look at that body of work, the fact that you won and you had great stats is further, a testament to how you were playing. If you were on a team where nothing mattered, you'd do even better. Because, hey, you know what? I'm just going to hit this over here because my stats will go up. But it's like, no, I need to do this because we're winning games. And when you put that in context, you play to win the game, that inherently always is going to make the stats go down.
Well, look at it the other way, too. You're out of it in July, early August. How do you push yourself?
Yeah.
Right? And if you're one great player, you got to remember in baseball, they don't have to let you play with the ball.
Yep.
They can pitch around you.
Yep.
I've always said most of my streaks were predicated on who was hitting behind me and how well. It could have been Say, it could have been Baker, it could have been Smith. If I'm not protected, they didn't pitch to me. And by the way, I didn't walk a lot. I love to hit the ball. So
That's it.
I maybe took 2 fastballs down the middle, which is one of the things that I don't get irritated, but it's funny now to see guys take fastballs right down the middle. Or you remember this whole thing going deep into the count. Well, the deeper you go into the count, ironically, more the pitcher's advantage starts to creep up. So I would think situation. Nobody on, probably get a first ball fastball. The guy in front of me just hit a home run on a fastball. I'm going to get a breaking ball. He hit a breaking ball. I'm going to get a fastball. If I look up at home plate, look and see the right fielder or the center fielder shifting to right, and everybody moving over, where's he going to pitch me? They're going to pitch me outside.
Yeah.
Yep.
If I see a shortstop, if I look at the pitcher and he's getting the signs, he gets the sign, I see the shortstop move to his right, I'm getting a pitch inside.
Yeah.
But it's about thinking the game. I've always said the great players not only had physical skills and God-given skills, they thought the game. And it's, sports is a constant adjustment.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot. Kid will come up from the minors, he'll hit 422 for 2 weeks. And then next 3 weeks, the advanced scouts have now fed information, and now he's batting 211 or 198, by the time 6 weeks is up.
Yeah.
It's that constant adjustment.
Yeah.
And understanding. And I tell the young players, it's going to take you 5 years to really understand this level of play. And they'll look at me and, they may have had a couple of good years. What's Garv talking about? He's getting old. Doing great, right? Then you come across injury.
Yeah.
And they're suddenly pitching you the right way, you're not adjusting. All of a sudden you're having an off year. I mean, Bellinger's a great example of that. He had this phenomenal year, and then what happened? They started pitching that fastball up and not down. And his swing is cocked, and he would come underneath it. Then you get frustrated. Then you start going after balls that you normally wouldn't go. And now your mind starts to take over your body. And that's the problem with this game. I mean, nothing worse than a slump.
Yeah.
All wives are on suicide watch with a slump, because that's the one way they can cancel your contract is by committing suicide. So.
Yeah, you definitely need a very high level of discipline, especially at this level, obviously, to work through those kinds of things. And I love what you're saying, just the cerebral things that you were thinking about as a player. I know players now obviously are very, they have the different stats and all the, spin rate, and there's lots of different things that are available to them that are different from what you had. So I know they think about those things, and obviously you were talking about Bellinger and hitting his swing path, and kind of how a lot of players in this game now want to hit more home runs, and they're adjusting their approaches to try and make that happen. So it's very interesting to hear kind of how your thought process was as
now
a player.
he'll come back. I mean, he got hurt,
Yeah.
right? And he's going to run into some pitches in key situations, and he's going to win ball games. But he's got to. He was very tall and feet together here, and then he would cock and come over here. Then he spread out a little bit and put the bat flat, right? Back, but it hangs down, so his first move is here. Now he's got to hold it here and just come back and get on the plane.
Yeah.
And he'll do it. But he's got to do it. You can tell him. And hit a home run recently on a real good pitcher's pitch. So
That's
psychologically,
that's when you know when things are working.
And he realizes, especially in a season like this in 2021, he's been injured. He's not going to put big numbers. Don't worry about numbers. Just be concerned about doing what you need to do to help the team win. And sometimes it may be pushing the ball to the left side when that shifts on.
And that goes exactly to what we were just saying. It's especially hard to get out of a slump when your team is playing winning baseball, and you can't just go and say, hey, I'm going to work on my own thing. It's like, hey, you come up situationally in a situation that this might not help you break your slump, but it's going to help the team win the game. And
Absolutely.
now that might prolong it, that might extend it, and it might go there. So looking at today's game, what player do you look at and go, they have everything? You would look at them and you say all-time great swing, great player.
Well, Trout comes to mind obviously now, but and Mookie's in the mix, and I would say there are probably 12 to 15 guys who combine the ability to think and execute, make adjustments. But see, nowadays there isn't a demand to be a 300 hitter to be recognized.
Yes.
250's fine.
Yep.
Right? Look at all the guys now that the All-Star break that have 10 plus home runs. Are they all going to have? A lot of them are going to have 20 plus home runs, 30, 40 maybe. But getting back to going the other way, moving the runner over, dropping down a bunt, goes against the launch angle, right? But stop striking out 130 times and thinking it's okay. Corey Seeger, who I think is an excellent hitter, one of the best hitters in the game when he's up there. a couple of years ago, he was starting to pull the ball all the time. Ended up on one knee with these big swings. So, and by the way, closest to Ted Williams I've ever seen as a hitter.
Okay.
His approach.
That's big praise right there.
Yeah. I mean, Ted was a dead pull hitter, but Corey can actually go the other way with that outside pitch. He's sitting on the bench. He's kind of down. He's struggling. It was after batting practice. He still had some, just sitting there. I came up to him, talking to him, and I said, "Come on." He said, "Where are we going?" I said, "We're going to walk out to left field." He looked at me and said, "I'm going to introduce you to left field. You've forgotten where left field is." And he started to laugh, but I said, "Okay, we won't walk out there. But you start to take that outside pitch and go the other way. And that inside pitch, if you're thinking outside half, which I did in my whole career, 8 of my 10 biggest hits were to center and right field. If you're looking that way, as good of high-end coordination you have, and a hitter, you'll just instinctively bring those hands in on the inside pitch. You'll get the head on the ball. You'll still do damage pulling the ball. But now you will have sprayed the ball all around the field. Average goes up, strikeouts go down, victories go up."
Yeah.
So is Seeger the guy that you look at and you appreciate the most right now?
Well, I think on
And
the
that doesn't mean
Dodgers,
you think he's the best.
Yeah.
But that's the guy that.
when he's playing and what he did last year, the last 6 weeks of the year, and then the playoffs, pretty exceptional.
Yeah.
I mean, could have won at 3 MVPs. I mean,
Yeah.
the way he was playing.
Yeah.
Good, solid shortstop. Look at Tatis. Look what he's doing after a couple of years, right? Haven't watched Acuna that much, but he seems to be very talented.
Yeah.
But there's class and then there's style. I mean, the class of a hitter is his ability to hit the ball, or style is style. The class is how he handles it. Does he run hard to first base? Does he give me 100 real hard feet past the bag? Does every ball he hit, does he a single, which normally is a single, does he think double? Does he take the extra base hit? Right? Does he drop the bunt down to break up a no-hitter? Heck with the book. Everybody says, he's book. You can't do that. You can't bunt with the bases loaded. I broke up 3 no-hitters, 1 perfect game by bunting. In 2 of those games, we ended up winning.
So that's you going against the unwritten rules, right? And what's your take? We've talked it on this show a couple of times that the unwritten rules are different for everybody also, right? You have things that you're like, hey, I'm going to break up this no-hitter with a bunt because I don't want to be no-hit. And some people would be like, oh, you can't do that. You got to swing. You got to hack. You got to go after him. This is mano a mano. Are we playing to win? Am I playing to do my job? Or am I playing just because there's a moment that could be cool? And it sounds like you're more with me with that.
There's one simple fact. The burden is always on the defense. It's the pitcher on the mound. It's the fielder in the field. It's executing. And I've always said, offense wins games, defense wins championships. And every year the Rawlings Gold Glove dinner is at the Plaza in New York. And Mike Thompson, the head of baseball, there's a phenomenal guy, and they asked me to be a presenter. I usually present the first award. And the last couple of years it's been the Platinum Gold Glove for women's softball, which guy with 5 daughters, I'm honored. But I always say that.
I think
Offense
A.J.
wins
Andrews
games.
is out there right now.
Yeah, that's right. But defense really wins championships when it's all said and done. Because look at the Dodgers in 2018 and 2019. They kept trying to hit 3-run home runs. They didn't make adjustments. They didn't manufacture runs. They got beat.
Yeah.
And the 2 teams that beat them were Houston and Boston, who, and by the way, Sabermetrics was so involved with the lineups of the Dodgers that it took away from building a 7-man cohesiveness that both Houston and Boston. That's okay. I mean, the teams had a phenomenal run, and that was their philosophy until last year, when if you watched them, they started manufacturing runs.
Yep.
And taking walks
Yeah.
and doing these kind of things.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what I think that the analytics are great, and the Yankees show it every year now. The Yankees have been a great regular season team and a terrible postseason team. And I think that analytics are great in baseball's numbers. They always say, hey, 162, the averages play themselves out. And analytics always work when you look at a large body. So go with the bet, go with the thing. But in a singular moment, you can't go by the analytics because there's always an outlier, there's always things that exist. And I have to start throwing some things away the closer I get to the ultimate thing, because now more human factor comes into it anyway. So at some point in time, you have to use your feel for the game. You have to look at it and say, hey guys, like, what got us here might not be the thing that wins. We have to be ready to do anything to win. And I feel like that's one of the things that has been out of the game now that everybody's like strikeout or home run, is nobody knows how to win a game some other way. And the Mets had some injuries in the early part of the year. They traded for Cameron Maben. They traded $1 for him. And that's what the trade was.
That's insulting.
And then, but
Yes,
then
it
he
is.
was.
I'll take a Bitcoin.
Yes, there you go.
It's a little more expensive.
Right.
But then he was batting third for them that night. So that's. But now they're laying down bunts. I saw a sacrifice, a suicide squeeze the other night, and laying it down. And guys, nobody's doing it. But then when you see it happen, it works. And it's like you have to be ready to do anything to win a game when it gets to those precious moments where there's only a couple outs left, and you're now. You can't just look at the 162. The playoffs become different. And the Rays a couple of years ago where they pulled the pitcher.
Yeah,
Use the feel, man. Like,
that's the prime example.
don't.
Let me give you 2 stats. Because I was able to hit the ball around, and I turned into a very good bunter. I could hit and run. Lasorda would always hit and run with me. And I thought bunting was going to be one of my most important weapons, because once I started bunting, I started getting 11, 12 bunt hits a year, right? What that does is now that brings the third baseman in, and I would get another dozen hits because he was playing closer and I would get the ball by him. So I'm getting 25 hits just by being able to bunt. Throw another 6, 7 hit and runs in. So now, if you have 500 at-bats, look what happens to your average.
Yeah.
Now I'm a 300 hitter because I do all these little things, right? And it helps the team, right?
Yeah.
Gets runners over,
Yeah.
gets them in, breaks up no hitters. You know, all these things make you a smart hitter and make you a complete hitter. And and I would average 50s in strikeouts. Once in a while, I'll get 60s. But back to, we talked about Corey. I said to him, you're striking out 130 times. If you put 60 of those at bats, put the ball in play, that's another, I guarantee you another 20 points for you, another 40 points on your average. He
Yeah.
looked at me, and then he started to think. And I'm not taking credit for it, but I'm saying planted the seed in the concept of getting back to what your God has given you the ability to do. And then he took off, and from there. So,
It's amazing.
and you said outlier. Maybe that's my career. Maybe my career is an outlier. Bill James always said in voting for the Hall of Fame, I was very, very difficult for him to come to a conclusion one way or the other. He said you didn't have the big numbers, but you did all the things that you were expected to do when you got to the point of your career, your freewheeling zone. And he said that's essentially what a Hall of Famer does.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the number exactly. 14 All-Stars?
10
All-Stars.
10 All-Stars, won all 10. 5 NLCSs we were in, won all 5. Dodgers and Padres.
And that's to me like it's the challenge. So there's other players, and again, we recently, even Jacob deGrom, there was a question even coming into this year, like, he might not be a Hall of Fame player, and he's won a bunch of Cy Young, should have probably gotten another one. Now that we're seeing that some other substances were helping guys and things were going on, but do you think that just the length of a career is amplified in those numbers? Because some guys accumulate it because they have the luck of playing 22 years, and it's like, oh, well, of course his numbers look better, he was there. Do you think that the value of each individual season should mean more, depending, and weight more based off of winning, based off of how it compared? Because you won a lot, and you were an all-star a lot, and yeah, you can look at every other number, but sometimes I feel like the Hall of Fame is confused by what they're supposed to do. And it's get great people in. The numbers, guy plays 8 years, and if he's the best player in the league for 8 years, and a tragic incident happens, he can't play anymore. Well, no, he didn't. He doesn't have the numbers comparable. But every year he played, he was better than everybody else.
Who says? Let me give you one name, Sandy Koufax.
Yeah.
Sandy Koufax played 10 years.
Yep.
Right? Signed in 55. At that time, if you got so much money, I don't know whether it was 2,000 or 5,000, you had to be on the major league roster for 2 years. Had to dress out with the boys of summer, right? So he'd strike out 14, walk 6. He would hit 4 guys, until 59. He really didn't make it. So from 59 to 65, right? Maybe 66. Arguably, he and Gibson, best 2 pitchers in baseball.
Yep.
Right? Well, what about DeGrom? How long does he have to be good to slot in that Koufax, window? As far as I'm concerned, he's there.
I would agree.
You're only can't think of a column to write that day, or you need a segment to fill to throw that out there and get people to call in. And you guys know, there's always going to be opinions and so forth.
Always.
But what he's done, I've watched him. Didn't have a chance to watch him too much because on the West Coast, you don't see him very often. But I've watched him recently 3 or 4 times, and he's pretty special.
Who's another person that you think is similar to you, similar situation? You look at them and you're like, this person, Hall of Fame quality player, but they're not a Hall of Famer yet.
That's tough. And again, like I said, 12, 15 guys can go out on the field, and I admire what they're doing because they're throwback kind of guys. One other thing, though, as I'm thinking, and I saw this stat last night. Colorado Rockies are 2nd or 3rd in infield hits in baseball. And I watched them drop down a couple of bunts against the Padres, and you think of, you play in Denver, you got to be swinging for the fences.
Yeah.
It hasn't worked.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I said to the owner one time, I'd go get 5 Randy Jones and have him come out here and throw 55 to 60 miles an hour, sinkers all the time, take my chances.
Yeah.
Right? You just keep signing guys that throw 95, 96, and that ricochet, it goes 450, 470.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? So now they're realizing they're not going to make it again this year, so let's start doing things like we've talked about, manufacturing runs, doing
back to the
small ball
basics.
every now and then, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? People like it. Because who buys the tickets?
Fans.
Right.
Yeah.
Fans who are basically mature adults who remember growing up, who remember the Garveys in the 70s and 80s, and the Dodgers and the Padres would end. Gossage and Nettles came to San Diego, and the 3 of us were kind of a trilogy of experience, and we go to the World Series. Right? But it's the home run derby. Last year, 400 home runs in one night. It's going to be a lot again in 21.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It gets boring after a while.
Yeah.
It just gets boring.
So listen, I'm a huge fan of the home run.
Yeah.
And the guy who I would love to hear your opinion on, who's currently leading the league in home runs, has also been a fantastic pitcher, and it's Shohei Ohtani. What's your take on Shohei?
I was drawing a blank on all these guys. There were guys back in the 20s and 30s that did that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you keep mentioning Babe Ruth.
Yep.
It's a little different.
Right.
Right.
They only used 3 balls a game back then, and maybe 2 pitchers, probably not. But I started watching when it first came up, and it was gonna be 2-3 years to make adjustments. You have to, right?
Yep.
Japanese baseball is core baseball.
Yep.
And it his size, and he's got a great body, and his swing, even though it seems long, is
So
from
fast.
A to
His
B,
bat speed's
right?
insane.
Yeah.
Hits the ball around.
Yep.
His pitching is tough. I mean, he's got a great arm, but the ability to do this every day, the manager's got to be very, very smart in when he rests him, and he's had some arm problems.
Yep.
And eventually he's probably going to be a position player, maybe a spot guy, in relief every now and then. But this 2021 All-Star game with him is going to be a lot of fun, exciting.
Yeah, even if we don't get multiple seasons like this from Ohtani, having this one has just, I think for a lot of people, they fantasize about Babe Ruth and like what he did and imagine it. Well, he was his 60 home run season, he wasn't a pitcher any longer. And the last time he was a pitcher and a hitter, I think it was something he hit 28 home runs, and was a solid pitcher, but nothing special.
He had World Series records. That was the interesting thing.
Right.
Yep.
Right. When you look at Ohtani now, he's already got 32 home runs, or 33? Is it
33.
33
Yep.
now, right? Since we got here, he hit another. And he's throwing 100 miles an hour. It's just a lot of young kids, I think, are looking at this and they're like, that's amazing. And they do it. And you see the best kid growing up, he hits, he pitches, they do everything.
Absolutely right.
So those kids are looking at that, and I think it opens up that anything's possible.
Yeah.
And we heard some great talks this weekend from players about, the game of baseball doesn't need to change. It's always been this way for all these years. What needs to change is the fact that we have these amazing opportunities to showcase the stories and the things that are happening. And Shohei's coming out throwing 3 pitches and just throwing it and hitting the ball, and he looks like he's having fun and he's enjoying it, and that's making people love baseball again.
It's good for the game, good for kids. When I've got 5 daughters and 2 sons, and both sons have played. Ryan was with the Rocky organization, but at a young age, you got to be very careful because the coaches really emphasize the pitching. Because you get a kid that's advanced, he's going to win games. He's going to have him spinning the ball. He's going to have Tommy John surgery by the time he's 14.
Oh, I agree.
There's 7 or 8 times more Tommy John surgeries of kids under 15 now than ever.
Yep.
Then as you get older, obviously now, we want him to pitch, but really he's going to be a position guy after a while.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point about kids and the youth and growing up. I think that so much money has entered the amateur ranks and kids growing up and travel ball and showcases and all these things that kids are over professionalized at a young age, so it doesn't allow them to really
And over entitled.
And over entitled,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, when the parents are putting them in a situation where they're treating them like mini professionals, how do professional athletes, what's the perception of how they act? Walk around, I get whatever I want, I walk in. Well, yeah, then a kid is going to act like that because parents are treating their kid like, hey, my kid might be a celebrity baseball player one day. You're already in the wrong frame with your kid. And I think that we could have an entire podcast on just that one thing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
But
Well,
hearing
raising
you
children
say
in
it is-
America. We have my 7 and 7 grandkids, and but in the context of what we're talking about, to finally have 2 sons was a blessing. It's so much estrogen in the house, Lord, please, just a little testosterone.
Yeah.
So we had Ryan and Sean, and my whole emphasis was to get them to realize that their father had been very blessed and had a wonderful career, but from that first day I was a bat boy in spring training in 1956 with Brooklyn Dodgers, I fell in love with a game that really was predicated on honoring the game, respecting it, playing for the fans, and they knew that they had to play the game a certain way. They had to respect everybody. When we went to Dodger Stadium, they weren't Garvey boys going to run all around. They were Garvey family, and this is how we respect people.
Yeah.
And they've done very well at it. I'm very proud of them as men. Sean, my 22-year-old, just graduated from Michigan State, which is the last of the litter. The Spartan legacy carries on finally. But our greatest challenge in life is being parents or parenting or mentoring. And nowadays there's such a disregard for character and respect for people that we've got to get back to that.
And you played a game that provides you the opportunity to build character, build relationships, learn how to treat people. And I know personally, like playing college baseball really got me into that atmosphere of building a work ethic, learning how to really gel with a new group of people and get to know and just kind of have new conversations, and it's just a great experience. And I know, like, just talking about like the amateur side of baseball, anytime people ask me like, what was that experience like, I always tell them, like, do the best you can to try and at least get to that level, because it will change like who you are as a person. And I applaud you for, and you're saying that your children can, and grew up and became wonderful people, and that's awesome.
Well, sportsmanship is maybe the most important thing in sports.
Yeah.
Respecting the opposition, respecting everything's vertically integrated. Your coach, your manager, your owner, whatever it may be, as you go higher. respecting the sport that you're playing. Don't take things for granted.
Yeah.
And like I always said, we're in the memory business.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a traveling team, whether it's Little League, whether it's whatever it may be, these are the memories that build who we are individually and our families and so forth. And if you do it the right way, it's so much richer.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
doing it the wrong way, and then because we all have regrets, we all have a conscience. Sometimes it takes a vacation, because we're all human.
Yeah.
But we have to respect each other and the games we play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a way to, have fun with the game and allow kids to see that the game is fun and exciting, and not completely morph into one-upsmanship. I see a lot of things like, I like guys being able to celebrate with passion on the field, because I think if you're passionate and that's who you are, allow yourself to be yourself. But there's kids there's videos out there of, a 13-year-old striking out and yelling at an umpire. And it's like, that's not passion. That's the entitlement. And it's those difference between knowing the difference of passion and excitement and playing a game with that, and you disrespecting the other person to one-up them and to put on a show.
And you know where that voice came from? It came from a parent who yelled at a coach, his manager, or at an umpire, and they heard it and think it's okay. Right? My parents can do it, I can do it. One of my grandkids came out with a 4-letter word the other day. We're shocked, right? Oh, what did you say? and I looked at my daughter and son-in-law, and they went, "It's our fault."
It's us.
I said, "Okay, but he's got to be punished."
Yeah.
Right. And
Gotta
something
learn.
has to be taken away. Something can't be given for a period of time.
Yeah.
You got to realize that instead of letting it go,
Yeah.
to
Life
suppress a
has to-
laugh.
yeah.
It was so funny because kids are so spontaneous,
Mm-hmm.
but then they've got to realize that no, you shocked us. Number one. Number two is now you're going to have to be responsible for
Yeah.
what you do and what you say. So.
Yeah.
So, speaking about today's game, there's been a lot of proposals, things to change, things to go. In the next 5 years, what is something that you would like to see happen in the game? What's something that you would like to see a change or a go back to? What's something that you hope that happens? Because one thing is they were talking about was getting rid of the shift, or making certain shifts like you're not allowed to do it. Is that something you're for or against? Like, what's something you hope the game institutes or returns back to?
Well, because it's a new millennium, and because economics have changed so much, and the business has changed, it's going to be very, very difficult to say, okay, let's go back to the 50s. Right?
Yeah.
You're just not going to do that. But let's not change the game so it starts to not look like the game that we love,
Yeah.
that it's rushed.
Yeah.
Because supposedly we're not reaching a young audience that doesn't have the time to sit and watch. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're just not going to rush. It's not going to affect the kids because they're doing this, they're playing games, they're running all over the place. You're appealing to the mature audience that grew up with baseball a certain way. They're going to watch cable television, they're going to listen on the radio. You've got to engage the kids when they do see the game. Hey, that is fun. They're having a good time out there. Maybe I will play.
Mm-hmm.
And get our parents to, even if the first time didn't go well, give them some time, give them some space. Ask them again if they'd like to do it.
Do you think that? And I agree. Like right now, economically, it makes the most sense to just continue to go after the mature audience. The challenge is that young kids, and I get not wanting to bend so much that we move apart from it, but are there some aspects of the game that would be beneficial by making some changes? Because like you look at the NBA, there wasn't always a three-point line, and the three-point line has changed things about the game. Some people would say it's corrupted aspects of the game, it's changed it, but it's just created a new way of it happening, right? The forward pass in football, like for years it was running, and then there was additional things that have added to it. Do you think that the game of baseball requires some shifting? to allow a younger audience to enjoy it? If so, what would that be from your perspective? If not corrupting the core competency of what makes baseball, what do you think would really help those kids find that love at a younger age?
The Mantles and the Musials and the K-Lines played the game a certain way.
Yep.
And we grew up watching them. We had the game of the week, one game. Now every game's on TV all the time.
Yep.
Then our group came along, played the game very similarly. But the business started to change. And when any business, the economics change drastically, what happens? People find a way to cheat.
Yep.
So it was amphetamines in the mid-'70s, then it became steroids,
Yep.
right?
And now it's Stickum.
Then the next group. By the way, this whole thing about doctoring the ball, this is a revelation.
No,
No, it is
not
not.
to,
It
not
is
to
not
this
a
podcast.
revelation.
All of a sudden you're going to
Spitballs
come
were a
up.
thing, guys used
I
to
think
put.
the
I
entire
had
time
slob
baseball
on my
was-
face when some guys were pitching. You know,
Oh, my
after I
God.
hit.
Yeah.
This is like, wait a second. We're trying to divert something that's going on here by saying all this other stuff. Oh, they're doing this or doing that, and then a pitcher says, "I'm only using sunscreen." Really? Sunscreen mixed with rosin or just with sweat? That ball's going to come off. Spitballs, took the spin off, and that's going to be a heavy, heavy sinker.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm.
And then they're going out
Has
and
there been
getting
a big
something.
sale on small nail files that you can put in your glove? They just need nail files, right? Pine tar, traditional, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, when they're talking about spin ratios and using sticky stuff, they're not making it spin that much faster, by the way. They're taking spin off depending on how much you use. So they're all different ways. And by the way, the pitcher doesn't necessarily have to be the one that's supplying whatever to the ball. The ball gets in the dirt, catcher picks it up, he just kind of nonchalantly scrapes it on the back of his shin guard,
Little
puts a cut in
sandpaper.
it.
Yeah.
Pitcher gets the ball, he's probably only going to get one pitch with it, right?
Yeah.
But he's going to make that ball cut
Yeah.
one way or the other.
He's gonna get the out with it.
And
Guys have been doing this all through the years. I've got to say one thing. I heard an interview
get it.
maybe
Yeah.
yesterday, and a Mets player,
Yep.
power hitter, is talking about, I don't think it matters that much that pitchers get to put substances on the ball.
This is Pete. I know it's Pete.
Yes.
I got batting gloves. I put pine tar on my batting gloves to get a good grip and hold the bat and so forth. I'm thinking, really? You think that using pine tar and a couple of batting gloves are going to make as much difference as somebody that's using substances on the ball? In his opinion,
Everyone was
and
a little bit amazed.
We said
at
the
that.
same thing about
Yeah.
Pete. Pete, I don't know I don't know who he was defending in that situation, but the reality is, to me, the spider tack specifically, guys using other things like Pedro Martinez did a great interview, and he was talking about how if he just got sweat and the rosin, you had to burn it, and if you moved it between, it became tacky, and you could actually hear on his mic how sticky his fingers got just from the rosin. And he's like, this is all I ever used. He's like, so all these other guys who are using stuff, you're cheating. Now, there might be an unwritten rule, but then they got the spider tack stuff where like, you could hold it on one finger. You're just able to make a ball that you grew up hitting. And you saw a ball come off a guy's hand, you knew
You're in the wiffle ball now.
deep in your head
Yeah,
what it was going to
exactly.
do. You knew how it was going to break because you'd seen it millions of times. Now all of a sudden this guy's got something on his finger and he does the same thing. And you swing and that ball disappears 6 inches further away than you thought. It changed the entire game for these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And Garrett Cole had a great start, and he fought to stay in the other night
Yeah.
because he wanted to make a statement. This is my best start of the year. You guys know I'm not using anything.
Yeah.
I need to show I'm still great. He's fallen off, and he's much more inconsistent because he doesn't have the control. And having those substances, do you think that maybe that's like, is that one of those things that will help the game? Do you think that this is a positive thing to get more of this out, or do you think that we're all being distracted?
Well, and by the way, I like Pete. I think he's got great potential.
He's a
Right.
good dude.
Yes.
I'm just saying that I'm listening to him, and I'm thinking, pitcher knows speed, angle, location, right? He's throwing 95. You got 0.4 of a second to determine those things. Okay, and if it's a straight pitch, you got 4 seconds to get the round bat on the round ball and hit it squarely. You got less than an inch to hit it squarely. Now, if you've got a pitcher that's able to put a substance on the ball, like you just said, to make it sink, sail, cut one way or the other,
Yeah.
I've got to make adjustments in that 0.4 of a second, and
That are
that's going to
unnatural.
You just
take me
can't.
from being a 300 hitter to being a 260, 250, 240 hitter, because it's just that tough a thing to do. So, when we're getting to a point now, again, I think this is going to go by the wayside.
Yeah.
Right?
It's an overcorrection to get back to some semblance of normalcy.
I get more a kick out of the baseballs. Did you realize how many new air control towers are outside of stadiums now? Because of the balls flying out of the stadium, and if they're in the flight path of LaGuardia or LAX.
Wow, I didn't know that.
No, you didn't know that. I missed that. These baseballs are unbelievable.
Yeah.
So do you think, like, obviously you played in a different era, but you know that throughout baseball it's always been a thing in some capacity. Would you prefer to completely eliminate and just make a solid rule, nothing at all, no rosin, or just rosin, and make it firm like they've tried to do, or provide
Just
something?
rosin for how many decades?
But it's been unspoken.
But they've never taken guys out
Yes.
and said, because we were just all talking about spitballs, everything else. It's
It
the
was
unwritten
there.
rule side. Like, yeah, we're just not going to talk about it. It'll be okay. They tried to get Vaseline out of the game back, late 80s, early 90s. Guys had different things. Like, but there's never been a hard, hey, you're going to get in trouble. Versus for the hitters, because I think pitchers got an advantage from steroids, but I think hitters got the distinct advantage from it because you were putting a ball in play harder. So you were finding holes that you wouldn't have. Guys would have picked that ball, scooped it, and gone. So the hitters, I think, had the outsized advantage at that time. This is a situation where I feel like pitchers have created a wild disparity in the game, and that's also one of the reasons why I think the strikeouts, stuff like that you just said, you got 0.4 seconds to make a decision, and you've spent your entire life training to predict and model in your brain what's going to happen, but you can't model that a guy has something on his fingers that's going to make it dance unbelievable to what is humanly possible.
Which gets us down to the real element we're talking about here, and that is the ability to have rules and to apply them, and when somebody's caught, to give them a sentence, so to speak,
Yes.
that is worthy of discouraging somebody from cheating.
Do you think that a current model is enough games?
10 days for a pitcher?
It's one
They
start.
missed one start, yeah.
one
Little
start.
quick vacation.
And you can massage the one
Yep.
over 2 days, right?
Yep.
It's always been a joke. A guy gets fined, he does something, he gets fined 5 days, 10 days, a pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
That's like putting him in the IL. By the way, the IL is an interesting evolution, I think.
Yeah.
The IL is really, I think, a chance to give a guy a rest.
Do you think that guys should be able to rotate themselves into rest more instead of just trying to say that they're injured? Do you think that there should be an ability for that guy to just kind of let a minor league guy come up? And that's, again, you were talking about, it becomes the business of it, where we have service times and we have all these different things that play into it. But then you have a situation where, because every analytic is looked at and everybody's looking at so much, it's hard for you to be your best self as many days in a row now, because you have a pitcher who they know has the right stuff to get you out at the right time. So like you're having to put out 100% so much more often. Do you think they should give guys just the ability, like, hey, taxi squad up down, these 5 guys are part of the team, but they're not on the main roster, allow them to go back and forth between AAA, and they're on the roster, but they're down? Is that something that you could see the getting in the future?
Well, we talked about the economics of the game.
Yeah.
It's so great now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Guys probably don't realize what they're making now.
Yeah.
So if a pitcher's making 15, 20, 25, 30, he's not getting paid for complete games.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's getting paid for quality starts.
Yes.
Right. They're trying to protect him as long as they can.
Yep.
There is a significant portion of pitchers who've had Tommy John surgeries.
Yes.
Right. Tommy John surgery always doesn't enhance the pitcher like
It used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because guys
Right.
just weren't working
But
out
for-
as much.
Right, but for kids, when they say, oh, he had Tommy John, oh, he's going to be back better. They're going to take that ligament. It's going to be tighter. He's going to but that young boy does not have a whole team of therapists and doctors working him on a daily basis.
Yep.
Right?
And a year and a half of developmental loss at that age has a cascading effect across their career that takes away from a lot more than people think.
Could be infinity then for a career.
And 95, when a guy got Tommy John, it might make him better because he got a year of rest and he got physical therapists and trainers making every muscle on him balanced and better. And guys weren't doing the same routines they do now. Now these guys are paying guys $1 million a year to take care of their bodies. They're not going to come back better from this. You're going to be worse. And how much worse is how good the team is.
I got paid $24,000 in '71 to take care of my body, and come on.
There you go.
Great money.
And we were talking about the IL, and I think the IL has some obviously medical benefits to it.
Yeah.
Some of it's kind of sneak them in, give them a
Yes.
rest. What you're talking about could be the evolution of the next basic agreement.
Yep.
Right. Where you're talking about a flowing roster. Remember when waivers were a big thing, and you only had so many ups and downs, right?
Yep.
That's all basically gone by the wayside.
Yeah.
Guy can come up 6, 8, 10 times, and he's not out of waivers, right?
And you have older guys who, and it becomes again that economics and the analytics matter so much because he's a replacement level player, but he's had 8 years of MLB experience. But we have a guy in the minors who's going to be cheaper and he's going to be this. Well, let that guy stay on the roster. Just let him go up and down. And he's not going to be there full time. He knows he's not that guy anymore, but he offers you quality at bats and he offers you that professionalism. And I feel like that's needed in the game because you end up having these circumstances where teams you have pitchers. You have position players pitching games because we don't want to burn out arms.
Who else had a couple of home runs? Were they against legitimate pitchers? Was that the other night?
We were earlier in the CD.
You mean Mercedes? I think that's what you're talking
and
about.
a guy came.
No, Pujols last night. I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
Maybe-
Oh, yeah,
I
he
don't know
did,
if we're
yes.
dating
Yeah.
this,
True.
but he had a couple of home runs and they were late. And I'm just wondering, at some point at 18-1 or 19-1, they had to be bringing somebody in.
And that's the thing. Like at that point in time, like if we're so worried about we can't throw these guys because we have limited resources, the game's affected, and this is no longer what the competition's supposed to be. Allow a little bit more exchange. And I also think that gives the opportunity for a guy who guys didn't really know if you're going to be good or not, that opportunity to come up and maybe show it. Again, we're from New York and we're Mets fans. So like this kid McGill, who they just brought up, is in his mid-20s. He was started the year in Double-A. They bring him up. He was inconsistent in the zone. I think he had 7 strikeouts in 3 1/3. And he had to get pulled because he was 2 up. But the kid's got a good arm, and he's getting guys out.
Yeah.
He never would have gotten a shot if there wasn't injuries to their team.
The Dodgers do an excellent job of rotating among their major league team and the minor leagues.
Yeah.
And they've had injuries, but they will rotate them. They have faith that the guys that they've assigned and gotten to the AAA level or AA should be able to come up and compete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they give them a chance. I mean, Lux did that at one time.
Yeah.
There have been certain guys that have been able to come up for Smith, the catcher. All of a sudden, they've spent 2 months up, and now they get to the postseason, and
They
they're
got some
getting
real
their feet
experience.
solidly on the ground.
Yeah.
All 30 franchises are different. You got to remember that.
Yeah.
You guys more than I may be the only guy that gets the New York Post in the Palm Springs area, right? I love the Post.
There's probably a few guys who get in the Palm
Yeah.
Springs area.
Yeah.
That area has got a few New Yorkers who have made their way
we've got
down.
a few, mostly referees and umpires that come out there. But
Yeah.
to listen, to read every day, and I get the biggest kick out of Mushnick because I think he's become more of an ethicist in terms of, we talked about the sportsmanship of the game and these things, and he's a unique personality. But you guys got the Vaqueros, and I mean it's the best baseball writing. Even though they're focusing on their local teams, but it carries on throughout all of baseball.
Right.
And I get the biggest kick out of it. So, but they got that inside information you can only get when you're in New York.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
we're lucky where we're from, and that provides a lot of opportunity and good insight. I think sometimes everybody takes for granted the amazingness that's available and out there. And that includes us getting to talk to you today.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of great insight. I like where we got to at the end, getting into some things about the rules of the game and the future of the game. And I'm excited to see where it goes. And we're super excited that you were a part of it and you came and spoke with us about it today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
great
being here.
sharing with you. You don't get a chance to really have a long discussion about baseball. And you know, I've been so blessed from the age of 7 till 72 right now. And my life's predicated on giving back, as you know, but really trying to foster and preserve the game and the integrity of the game.
Yeah.
It is different times. There are going to be changes, but just let's make them reasonably intelligent changes,
Yes.
right?
Small steps,
We're
not
not
giant
asking
leaps.
for much.
Yeah. I mean, you know, our society politically now is so diverse and it's polarized. I don't want to see baseball get that way, and I'm afraid we're coming up with a new basic agreement, and you need reasonable minds to sit down and say, just like I said, what's the best interest of the game going forward?
Yep.
Right?
If you do it for the game and for the fans and the people who love it, you'd make different choices.
Yeah.
Don't just do it because of the financial reasons. There's
Right.
going to be money there if it's great, right? So let's just make it great.
And you may do too, and I know we're probably wrapping
No, I
this
love
up.
this extra innings. This is
Let's
extra
keep
innings.
going.
Extra innings.
There's no man on second. We're good.
We're good.
What we're going to have to do is, because in basketball it's one and done,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
In football, 3 years and you're done, and you're able to get big money.
Yep. And those guys also go. That's a more direct feeder system into what
Right.
it is.
Absolutely. So baseball, you get
spend
signed,
time. Yeah.
right? It's going to take you 4 or 5 years to get out, maybe a pitch or two. Now you've got 6 years. You've got arbitration, which, by the way, in my mind, changed the game more than free
Yep.
agency.
I agree 1,000%.
So you're going to have to be able, we're all battling for the youth of America to play our sport. Right? And in some sports, socioeconomics are just different. Basketball and football are just different. But we're all battling for all these young athletes. But you're going to have to give everybody an equal opportunity to make money earlier in their life than late, because football and basketball are going to get the younger athletes. It's a quicker way to
Financial security.
Yes.
absolutely
Yep.
right.
Yep.
And it doesn't take a lot, by the way, for financial security.
Yeah.
But we need to make modification. Maybe you do away with the draft and you.
Oh, so
and
now
free
we're going
agents.
real extra innings.
Yeah, we're
Right to free
going
agency.
I
from
believe
the original Outlander here.
we've said on the show.
We have.
I think that a player should have a 5-year contract. That's it. You draft him at 18. You draft him at 21. You have a 5-year contract, and you pay them money to be a player, and you have them for 5 years. And now, when you look at the NBA, what they do is when that guy gets to the end of 5 years, the home team has more money they can offer and more opportunities, so the player won't leave and go sign anywhere else. What baseball, from an MLB standpoint, from their side, what it looks like is manipulating service time, doing things like that, and then guys get to the point where historically, hey, we're just going to pay you because that's what we've always done. Now they're like, hey, we can just replace the guy. And it ends up making it that the game is worse because you can't consistently put out a good product when you're manipulating everything about what's going on. So let's just do 5 years. And then at the end of 5 years, the team that drafted the player, if they're worried about the effort, the time, the development, hey, you guys can spend more money than everybody else. But an 18-year-old kid shouldn't have to be X amount of years of service time at the MLB level before they can do anything, where you might have a guy for 8-9 years of his life before he finally gets to it. And you see too many of them. They're 30 years old. They're getting to the first time they get a contract. That is wrong.
Yep.
And it's wrong on so many levels. Now, NIL is giving them all the opportunity to make money off their names in college, make money off their names in high school, so you can promote and you can start to drive stuff, and that will change the revenue structure. Because what happens when recently drafted by the Mets, Kamar Rocker type player can start making money off his name his freshman year of college? And he's got a car deal and he gets a free car, and that's okay. Well, he's making more money. they're gonna start negotiating differently because they're like, guys, we can make money because we already have a brand, we already have the stuff. But yeah,
But you got to remember saturation. It all sounds good now, but there's only going to be a select number in each sport.
Yes.
Yep, of
because of you know, businesses aren't going to be willing to pay, everybody. They may capture a sport, maybe gymnastics or
Yeah.
something like that, but there's only so much money out there, and and it's finally it's right. I said this a long time ago. With all these big, huge TV contracts, I think every one of these basketball, football players should be under SAG and AFTRA. That way, it's controlled. They get so much per episode, per game, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty uniform across.
Yeah.
That covers everybody. I remember I used to get Michigan State. I get 4 tickets for each game, right? And end up giving them. Some guys would sell them. Some guys you had to do it face value.
yeah,
Most of the time it was for family. Right?
yeah,
And then we got a 25-cent coupon for Michigan State theaters where we go see a movie for 25 cents, right? Well, at that time it was 60s, and the SDS, Students for Democratic Society, found out about it, and they marched on Jennison Fieldhouse at Michigan State, and to take away something that the other students didn't get that we got. And essentially it was the Michigan State theaters advertised with the team.
Yeah.
There was an understanding of advertising and those things, but it was pretty funny. And boy, were those linemen from Gary, Indiana and Peoria, Illinois, pretty mad at the SDS kids.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. Yeah, and there needs to be a more direct line to let the best players play.
Yeah.
And it's been great to watch some organizations with like Tatis, and we've talked about
Just sending them up, and you're talking about like getting the youth of America to like want to come to your sport. Well, of all the major ones, baseball has the most hurdles to actually get to the show and really get to that point of I have, like you're talking about, financial security. I'm a star. I'm making my dreams come true in the sports world. And we talk about NBA, NFL. It's so much easier to get there, to get your personal brand out there, to make an impact immediately. And it's I'm sure there's been so many great players that had to give up because they were in the system for so long and had to make a life decision.
Real life. They get married. They have
Exactly.
a child.
Yep.
Something happens in the family.
Yep.
Like you said, it's a good word, hurdle. They got to lower the hurdles, bring them closer together, and get to the point where these athletes can control their destiny.
Yes. Because maybe you need to, after that 5 years, the team goes, hey, we don't want to re-sign you. But now that opens up your ability to go sign with another team's minor league and find the right situation for yourself. So you got drafted at 18 and you got drafted by a team that's poor at developing players, and you haven't gotten this opportunity. Now you're 23, but there's still guys getting drafted who are 23. But you've got 5 years of professional experience. You're telling me that there's not a team, but guys can't scout everybody. You can't find everybody. So guys get lost in the shuffle because of time, and they're hidden and stashed away because of this time and these hurdles and all these layers of complexity. That if it was just simple, guys could control their lives a little bit more, and I think we'd end up getting better baseball because, like he said, and like you were agreeing, guy's family gets hurt, he has to go get a job that pays him $70,000 a year because somebody's in the hospital, somebody gave up the game, and he might be the best player anybody ever saw, and you just can't do it. I can't go there.
Tony Clark was saying, and I've always thought that 3.5, 4 years is about the average for a major league player if he comes up one day.
Yep.
And that 4 years, you've had all your youth growing up.
Yep.
To maybe get those 4 years.
Yep.
And now, what used to be 38 is now 32. Because sabermetrics are not just crunching what's happening on the field. They're crunching
How long can it happen
contrast
for?
length. They're analyzing the body type. How many times on the DL. They're not going to. They couldn't analyze me very much because I was playing every day. And football player, he's dumb enough to get out there every day. But now they don't let you play more than 10 days or 2 weeks.
Yep.
Right? Because they're preserving the investment, which the investment now is greater than ever when you're talking about millions of dollars on these players. They're trying to get them out there from that 25 to 32 length. What's Clayton Kershaw now? Clayton's about 31, 2, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Still pitching pretty well, but he's starting to have things he didn't have: elbow, shoulder, these things. Thrown a lot
Been
of
around
pitches.
a while.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is that they got the cheap version of him for years, right? So you're paying the expensive version when he's not as good, and that even we all know that if you look at it from a business sense, that's going to look like it doesn't make sense. But then there's always going to be one side that's like, hey, this is cool. 5 years, guy gets to be on the open market. You can't just dominate a guy's life forever because you can manipulate everything about it. Because then again, you have Jacob deGrom, we were just talking about before. He didn't make his debut till he was 26. So here's a 26-year-old guy. Most guys who make their debut at 26 are journeyman guys. You'll play. But he had so many other circumstances. I was a different position. I tore my UCL. I had to recover. I then had years. There were other guys in the system who were high draft picks, who were getting pushed ahead. Matt Harvey, all the stuff. Like, there was things that created circumstance that kept him suppressed. But then once he got here, he had everything. And nobody knew that. Like, everybody was shocked how good he was. Well, so then something's broken in the system that no analytical thing told you that Jacob deGrom was going to be this good. You couldn't have. So we know.
Nobody thought Koufax was going to be that good.
Yep.
No one.
Until his catcher said, "Why don't you hold it this way a little bit? You know, that curveball or your fastball." That was it. And he signed out of Cincinnati University, so he had to be 20, 21 by then. And then he had to sit around for 3 or 4 years getting spot starts. And all of a sudden it came together, and he had that run for 6, 7 years, right?
And nobody's given that time anymore because, like we just talked about, finances.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
But then if the minor leagues and all the service time is manipulating it, you might just be in a bad circumstance for yourself. And you have no control over getting free because your entire ability to get free is based off of service time in the future that might not ever happen.
Yep.
And there's probably so many guys that we don't hear about. Or we see a few guys who make their debuts very late in their lives. Voit on the Yankees, the first baseman. He only lasts few years. Well, he's 31 already. And he's only been up in the show for like 3 years. That guy is...
Have a good year, go to arbitration, you'll catch up a little bit.
Yeah, but like you were saying, the analytics will push
Better
him
late
down.
than never.
Yeah.
But the analytics will push him down.
Yeah.
Because they'll say, hey, by the time he gets to the point that he's past arbitration, he'd be in his mid-30s. Nobody's going to sign him to the... Why wasn't he up sooner? What was the certain 5 years? And I think guys should be able to go and shop themselves around and talk to teams and say, "Hey,
You heard it here
how do I
first,
go?"
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. I hope one day when they bring me in to talk about
consult on it,
everything, to consult, they're like, "Hey, that makes sense." So
Do you
I'll
think?
negotiate your contract. By the way.
hey, listen, we can go together right outside right now. We can make this work. With your sign off, I can do anything in the room.
Yeah. Good benefits to it.
There you go.
You know.
Amazing. I got to play for 3
August
years.
in
though.
St. Bart's, and it'd be fine.
Oh,
Somebody said, would you? And this was a while ago. Could you come back and play? And I said I could still hit the ball. Now I was probably 50. I could still go to right. I said, but I want a contract for home games, pinch hit, 8th, 9th inning.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
no road
it.
games, and probably $5 million. That'd be fine.
that's
special.
That's
guys.
good
my
work
number.
if you can find it.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and be like, I only want to be the guy on second base in extra innings. That's all I want to do. $5 million. $5 million. I'll score more than everybody else. I'll take risks. I'll do whatever you want.
Yep.
But that's all I want to do.
Can I tell you one more thing? And I found that people come up with stats. Right?
Yeah.
And we talked about bunting,
Yeah.
10, 12 hits a year, and that and everything. Guy sent me a stat that with all-time players with over 75 bunts, I had the leading batting average of all time at about 840.
On attempts for bunting, you're saying?
Yeah, bunting 75 times or more. That I had the highest batting average in history at 840.
Wow. That's crazy.
Now, it's a little known fact. I take great pride in it.
That's
because,
excellent. Absolutely.
Because when
That
I
stat
bunted,
being broken on this right now makes me so happy.
Why is that not out there more? Hey
What?
guys, just bunt at least 75 times.
You have
could
an
have this
840
average.
batting average on 75 attempts.
Yeah. So, but and again, you talk about I used them in strategic situations
Yes.
too.
But that created the
Leading
element
off
like you
an
were
inning.
saying.
Twice I bunted with guy on third base, 2 outs, and score was tied.
Because nobody expects it.
Yep.
Bunted in. Then we got 3 outs. We had 3 outs to win the game.
But you had to have, for lack of a better word, the cojones and the skill to see 2 outs, guy on third lay a bunt down, right? Like, that's you being great.
Yep.
Like, not every guy in the league is gonna.
Well, people say, did you ever think of what if you failed? I said, so what?
Oh
Guys,
man, see, that's my point.
Yeah.
Like, that's brass.
Guy's gonna play, and I'm doing it the first pitch too.
Yeah.
Do it later in the count, complicates. Then you
Every
have a
guy's
chance.
moving,
And you have a
change.
chance.
You got to get him early.
That third baseman's going to play in. So now I've got this, long before, shifts. And that's the big thing they ask of, us veteran legends now, veteran guys. Did they have a shift when you were playing? Absolutely not. Because if you didn't take 2 shots, if, say for instance, say Reggie Smith, who was an excellent player and hitter, if they had shifted on him and he didn't take 2 shots to the left side, even if he bunted or just slapped it, Lasorda would be all over you.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind that more people don't do it.
Lindor was really struggling to start the year.
Yeah.
And they shifted on him, and they had been shifting heavy on him. And he finally just was like, bink, and dropped the bunt down the third baseline, and he's fast, and he got on. Since that moment, since that bunt, pretty much, he's been like a 295 batting average, and he's been a completely different hitter.
Yeah.
And it again, like you say, it just changes how everybody perceives what you can do. You have to keep that in your head, and that's the chess of baseball that, like, now that it's gotten to just home runs and strikeouts, that people don't understand. So if you like chess, you should like baseball, because it's all about how do I read what the other people are doing and read the situation. Like you were saying before, guys shifting this way, I know it's inside, right? Cool. How am I going to play that? And being able to think that fast on the fly,
It
like,
makes this game great.
it's the
Yeah.
when you find somebody who does it, it's so cool to watch them just come to the plate because they look unstoppable.
Yeah.
And Barry Bonds for a minute
and
at a time,
the pitcher
unstoppable.
knows.
Yes.
If I got up in crucial situations, I got up there ready to hit, that pitcher's looking at me going, boy, Garv looks like he's locked in.
Yeah.
I better be careful. Okay, what happens when you get careful? Big slider away.
Yep.
Now you get, 2-0. Now you got to come in.
Yep.
Right? Now I got you.
Yeah.
Right? But it's that perception, too. That mind of it. I'm not going to step out, get my gloves. And by the way, I haven't swung before. Get in the box and hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, players nowadays don't move around in the batter's box.
Yes.
They
They're
get into
always
one
consistently,
spot,
yeah.
they stay there, and if you know that I was
This guy's throwing junk. Move up.
I was a guesstimator.
Yeah.
I'd watch him. I'd watch sequences, pitchers, and
Yeah.
catchers. So if I knew that it was going to be a breaking ball, I always guessed away. I would get in the box, and I would move up ever so slightly.
Yeah.
Get parallel with the plate. Take the pitch more up front. If you're back and these kids are open, by the time they come here, they're still missing
Yeah.
a third of the plate they can't touch.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? So, 2 things. Take what they give you, right? It's
Simple.
too tough,
Yeah.
right? And that's on the field. Off the field, manage the things that you can control. The rest, don't worry about it. Manage the things you can control. And if you think about that and you do that, you instead of agonizing over 100% of your life and thinking about every little thing, you're going to say, okay, yeah, I'm concerned about it, but this is my easier path.
Yeah.
Very well said.
This is the easier path. I'll put this in a spot, but this I can manage. And that's why I get so bad when guys don't run the first base side. You can control that.
Yeah.
Run hard.
Yeah.
There's always the hit, guy bobbles it, and he still gets the guy by 3 steps. What if he would have ran hard? He would have got on first base.
Yeah.
He would have made it.
Yep.
Now it puts the pitcher in a stretch, or maybe prolongs the inning. Guy hits a home run, just by running hard.
And it
Yeah.
breaks a slump. It does so many other things that,
Absolutely.
you know, like you don't know the moment that's going to change your mentality.
Yeah.
So control what you can control. That's
What
great
ignites
advice.
a dugout more than a guy on third, less than 2 out, he hits the ball to the right side, gets him in. What's the dugout? Everybody's up.
Yeah.
You've sacrificed yourself. You come in, everybody's patting the guy,
Yep.
right? I mean, if you just tuned in, you'd think, yeah, that guy hit a home run. But
Yeah.
he's coming in from the,
He got out.
From the
When
right
the
When
field,
the little things
foul.
pay off, that's when
Yeah.
everyone's most excited.
Right.
Yes.
That's what really, really good championship teams do.
Yes.
And that, again, we bring up the Mets too much on this podcast.
Yeah.
But when they were
Sorry.
practicing during spring training and they were doing the 26 outs, and they celebrated like they won the World Series, and it was like, hey, we made no errors, nobody made a mistake, everybody went where they needed to, but we're just going to have fun with it, but we're going to practice excellent, and we're celebrating excellence. And it's like, people want to clown them for the action, and it's like the underlying tone is, we're taking practice so seriously that we were excited by the fact that we did practice perfect. And like, how do you look at that and not say that that's what you want the game to be? Like, these guys are excited by practice.
Yeah.
Get out of, I can't hear anybody else. That's the stuff that makes great teams. And when you
Builds the culture.
you get to the playoffs, all these teams that have good cultural fits, guys who are good leaders and do the little things right, they're going to win. And the teams who are like, you get the bad body language, the bad this, the bad that, those teams are going to fall apart. And everybody's going to be like, what did the analytics say?
All right. I've never told this before, but so I'm
Hold that mic in a
please.
little closer.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's here.
turn it up a little bit. Yes, I'll tell you this one right now. there's a word for that. I mean, there's a phrase for that where you and commercials done it where you whisper to draw people in. President Biden's been doing that lately. But anyway, so I'm from family from New York. You know, I'm born in Tampa. Mom's Yankee fan, Dad's Dodger fan. My grandfather was a Brooklyn policeman. So I'm an only child. So I'm growing up. Once I start Little League, we have 13 orange and grapefruit trees. So when they're small, I take them, put them in a bucket, get a broomstick, and I take my baseball cards, and I'm the Yankees against the Dodgers. Every game was a World Series, right? And if I hit it a certain distance, single, double, triple, across the street, home run, right?
course.
And I think that it really was one of the reasons I was such a good contact hitter. Hitting a little grapefruit that was half the size of maybe a golf ball with a broomstick, there wasn't too much margin for error, right? And invariably, every day, it would get down to the 6 or 7 game in the World Series between the Dodgers and the Yankees. And most of the time, Hodges would come through with either Snyder or Robinson
There you go.
to win the game. But what I was doing, and subliminally, and this is what we're talking about, as a kid, I was putting myself in classic game-winning situations. That later on, when we played the Yankees 3 times, I mean, for me,
I'd
it was
been there.
back
Yeah,
to
you won it 10 times
wait a
already?
minute. I played against the Yankees before on the Dodgers, right?
Yeah.
And once in a while, when my mother kept asking me, I said, who won today? The Dodgers. I thought to myself, I'm going to make the Yankees win today because she was the Yankee fan.
I love that.
That's awesome.
So that's what I would do. And Dusty Baker and I talked about that one time, about as kids putting ourselves in playing games where the game was on the line and we were up and we came through,
Yeah.
right? And by the way, there's certain times where I missed the ball, could have
Yeah,
struck out then the game, and I'd go, tipped it. Oh, foul ball. Oh, foul
You guys
ball.
saw
I get
that?
another
You
swing.
saw it.
Yeah. I was the commissioner. I was the umpire. I was everything. Yeah.
That's it.
But that's when you had time to do that on your own. That's when you had sandlots, and that's when you played on Drew Park Little League, and you were the Seahorses or Trumbull Aluminum. And nowadays, and I have a group of youth teams in the beach cities in LA. Kids nowadays, everybody's wearing a Majestic uniform. They got my teams are the Dodgers. They got official Dodger uniforms. They practice 2 times a week. They play in these big tournaments that are $500 on the weekend. Nobody actually goes out and does that pickup game anymore, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's where you made mistakes, right? Is when you were doing it by yourself and it was play. Like you said, you foul tipped it, you made mistakes, you tried things, you did little weird things. And that created your style and your ability to do it. Now kids are put into their mini professional level. Well, what happens when you go in a slump as a professional? Right? You lose out on contracts, monies. Mom and dad are bringing the kid to go get more hitting lessons, do more stuff. There's so much pressure to be perfect, and not allowing them to explore themselves and their own personalities and their own stuff. You don't get greatness. You get homogenous. You like everything is the same.
Yeah.
And you have guys staying in the same spot in the batter's box, doing all the same things.
Cookie cutter swings.
Everybody looks the
Right.
same.
Right.
And it's because we've been trying to manufacture these guys for the last 20 years that everybody should be the same, play on the weekends, play this high stress environment, and then you have the outliers, right? Guys who, hey, my parents didn't do that, and I didn't do, and they play great, and they have all these amazing things, and they did it completely different. There's no one way. And no matter who's trying to take your money to say you have to play baseball one way, they're lying to you. It's why baseball is so much fun. How you were born, you can be great, but you have to play it that way. Dustin Pedroia couldn't play like Albert Pujols, right? He had to play Dustin Pedroia's game.
Yep.
And Pujols would have done himself a disservice to play like Pedroia. You play to your strengths. You do the things that you do well.
Sure.
You maximize yourself, and you do what you can to mitigate the other things. But you have to find out and deeply look at who you are to find what that is. But if you're afraid to fail, you'll never know what that is.
Kids are missing out on that time.
Oh, absolutely.
It's-
You're so right. Once you find out who you are,
You can make yourself.
Your core of who you are, what makes up. Is an old saying: do you live your life for your eulogy or your resume? Right.
Yeah.
Eulogy all day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Once you get that and you realize that,
Yep.
life becomes easier.
Yep.
And by
I
the
love
way,
that.
it's not what you are; it's who you are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And those two things go together.
Agreed 1,000%.
Right.
You can be the best street sweeper in the world, and you can bring pride and effort and everything else to it. That's who you are. But you can do things great, and the thing you're doing isn't who you are. You're who you are. Circumstances.
And also, who I am as chairman of Fans for the Cure.
Yes.
Talk about
is
it.
Ed Randall's Prostate Cancer Foundation. Ed's, of course, a known personality in New York sports. He's a legend there.
Yeah.
6 years ago, I came down with prostate cancer. I'm on the board of UCLA of neurosurgery, and my wife, and usually the women drive us to these appointments because we're solving the problems of the world. And for men, the single greatest killer of men is prostate cancer.
Yep.
So saw the head of urology at UCLA, Mark Lippman, who's a phenomenal man. Candace asked the first 9 questions, and he told her about what prostate cancer is. There's 3 steps that you have to go through: a biopsy and Gleason score, and the different ways it's treated. And then I looked at him and I said, "What would you do?" It's probably the question most people want to ask their doctor.
Yeah.
Because if you believe in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, let's take it out. Let's do a radical prostatectomy. So through the grace of God, 2 weeks later, that taken out. He checked around, took 3 hours instead of an hour and a half, 2 hours, checking for whether it spread. It didn't. And I was clear, and cleared to this day. And then I decided to be a disciple to fight prostate cancer. So I called one foundation that's in existence, and didn't really get a call back. And then I called Ed, and I said, at my operation, I'm clear. I want to be a disciple for you. He said, you're on the board. I said, oh, don't you want me to visit first? And you're on the board, which is how he is.
Because he knows
right?
who you are.
He knows who you are. He knows the
And,
stories you tell.
2 board meetings later, I became chairman. And from that point on, and Michael Milken has the Prostate Cancer Foundation, and it's funded with millions, and he does a phenomenal job, and it's research. Fans for the Cure is a grassroots foundation. We're on an average year, last year was different with COVID, in 120 to 30 stadiums in the country, minor league parks, major league parks. Usually have an annual screening at Yankee Stadium, have hundreds of men. So for everyone listening, go to fansforthecure.com. See what we're doing. We have extensive work around the country. We have breakout sessions, regular podcasts. We save lives every year. We go to spring training, meet with all 30 teams. And the wives are maybe more important than the guys, to get them to take their PSA test, to get a score. I want you guys to do the same if you haven't.
For sure.
So that you're on the board, so that every year when you take your physical and you do blood screening, or every 6 months, if you see a strong movement, then it's time to do something about it. And that's how we save lives. So I had to mix that in.
Absolutely,
No, we love
of course.
that. And again, maybe we'll see you at Yankee Stadium in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I'll meet you there when we're having a screening. And
Yeah. We'll make sure we
We'd love to.
amplify that and
Yeah,
help get that
That's
out.
right. If you do the blood test, I give you an autographed picture. If you do the other test, then I give you an autographed ball. So, and I did that at
Say
at
no
Petco.
more.
I did that at Petco, and the guys were, "Hey, Garv, will you sign a ball for me?" I said, "Yeah, if you go into the beautiful van
Yeah.
from Scripps Hospital there," and I said, "Take the second test." Okay.
And they flipped the page too.
That wasn't so bad. I said, okay. So a couple hundred Rawlings balls when the seams were higher, by the way. Back, that was like 7 or 8 years ago. About 5 years ago.
Okay.
You got to have incentive for men, right?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm looking forward.
If life
to,
itself is an incentive, then we'll do anything we possibly can.
I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to the limited behind the scenes access we'll have
That's right.
to that, and me and Dennis's future testing.
Good.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much
Thank
for coming
you.
on today.
Thank you. guys.
Amazing,
Amazing,
talk.
yeah.
Extra innings. I'm so happy that we didn't stop when we did. 'Cause
Yes.
we got gold in the back end.
Double
So,
header.
guys, we appreciate you guys all listening to us today. This was an amazing one. Go check out everything that we talked about today. We'll be talking about more. We'll link to things below in the comments. Leave us a comment. Let us know anything you guys need to know. And we really appreciate you guys coming out. And
Thanks,
listening.
guys.
God bless.
Baseball lifestyle, it's my lifestyle.